The first thing I saw when I came back to life was the blue calculator. Not a white hospital ceiling. Not the headlights of the bus that killed me. Not the judge's table where I had once watched another boy hold my future in his hands. The calculator. My calculator. A bright cobalt blue Casio with one scratched corner, a tiny crack in the solar strip, and a silver approval sticker across the battery panel that read Candidate 33, Register Device, 8:14 a.m. It lay on my desk in the South Hall of St. Anselm's College, angled exactly as I remembered, beside two sharpened pencils, a transparent ruler, and the sealed paper for the Whitmore Applied Mathematics Scholarship Final. The exam had not started yet. The hall was still in that strange pre-exam silence where nobody is truly quiet. People breathe too loudly, chairs scrape like accusations, invigilators whisper, and every student pretends not to look at the clock. I knew that clock. 8:38 a.m. I knew the rain tapping against the long windows. I knew the smell of polish, wet blazers, and old wood. I knew the man standing near the front table with a clipboard tucked under his arm and a smile that made fear feel unreasonable. Mr. Alastair Rook, Director of Mathematics Enrichment, father of St. Anselm's Golden Boy, was about to walk to my desk and say the sentence that ruined my first life. Lend your calculator to Theo, Alara. You can manage without it. In my first life, I lent it. I handed over the blue calculator I had registered, cleared, stickered, practiced on, repaired, and trusted. I took the spare black calculator Mr. Rook pressed into my hand, a half-broken model with a stiff division key and no statistical table mode, where I expected it. Theo Rook used mine. I made errors, lost time, and then, worse, the serial audit flagged my desk as using an unregistered device. My score was held, then reduced, then dismissed as procedurally compromised. Theo won the Whitmore Scholarship by 2 marks. Years later, after a life of tutoring students through exams I still tasted like theft, I died when a city bus skidded through a wet crossing outside a community college where I had just finished teaching an evening numeracy class. My last thought, as my bag spilled open and a cheap calculator slid across the road into the rain, was, I should have kept the blue one. Now I was 17 again. The approval sticker was fresh. Mr. Rook turned from the front table, and my hand closed around the calculator before he took his first step toward me. A calculator is not supposed to be emotional. It is supposed to be plastic, silicon, buttons, battery, symbols. But poor students know objects become emotional when replacing them is difficult. My blue calculator had cost $79.95, which meant my mother bought it in 4 installments from an office supply store that charged interest like a punishment for needing maths. It was not the newest model. It did not graph in color. It did not have the glossy screen rich students used to display equations, as if their calculators had private tutors inside them. Mine was sturdy, legal, and familiar. I knew the pressure of every key. I knew the way the cursor blinked when I was one menu away from the statistics mode. I knew the exact rhythm for switching from normal distribution to regression output. I knew how to clear the memory in 3 seconds because exam supervisors checked that. I knew the battery cover slipped unless taped at the left edge. I knew that if I pressed the right arrow too softly, it sometimes missed, so I pressed with the side of my nail. It was not just a machine. It was a map of my hands learning not to panic. The Whitmore Final allowed only registered calculators. That rule mattered. Students brought their devices to the inspection table before the exam. Supervisors checked model approval, cleared memory, tested random keys, recorded the serial number, and placed a silver sticker across the battery panel with candidate number and desk number. Once a calculator was stickered, it could not be swapped, shared, borrowed, lent, replaced, or repaired during the exam without an incident report and external approval. The policy existed because the final was calculator-heavy. Statistics, financial modeling, iterative sequences, data transformations, numerical approximations, error analysis. It did not test whether students could press buttons mindlessly. It tested whether they knew when the calculator output made sense. But the tools still mattered. A student using an unfamiliar model would lose minutes just navigating. A student without a valid calculator would be crushed in paper too. That was why Mr. Rook needed mine. His son's calculator, in both lives, Failed inspection. In the first life, I did not know that until too late. In the second life, I remembered everything. My name was Alara Ven, and Saint Anselm's liked to call me exceptionally self-directed, which was school language for has nobody at home who can pay for tutoring. My mother worked nights at a hospital switchboard and days when she could at a chemist, where she became an expert at smiling while people complained about prescriptions being slower than they wanted. My father used to install security systems until a fall from a ladder damaged his back badly enough that every month became an argument with pain and paperwork. My younger sister, Mina, was 9 and believed calculators were tiny robots that knew secrets. She named mine Bluebird because of the color and because, according to her, it looked like it wanted to fly away from homework. I carried Bluebird in a soft pencil case my mother sewed from leftover curtain fabric. I did not let anyone toss it, borrow it, or just check something on it. At St. Anselm's, that made me look possessive. At home, it made me sensible. There is a difference only poor families are expected to explain. Mr. Rook understood objects too, though not the way we did. To him, objects were levers. A recommendation letter. A scholarship file. A calculator. A desk allocation. A bus pass. A mother's casual employment application. A student's fear of sounding ungrateful. He was not a shouting villain. He was worse, a reasonable man. Tall, gray-eyed, always in a charcoal suit, with a voice trained by years of assemblies to make every command sound like mentorship. He coached St. Anselm's mathematics team, chaired the Whitmore Final Committee, wrote articles about equity in STEM, and smiled in photographs beside students whose names he forgot unless they became useful. His son Theo was the school's mathematics prince. Neat dark hair, expensive glasses, long fingers, calm grin, the kind of boy who could make a wrong answer sound like a philosophical alternative. Theo was clever. That mattered. He could solve problems quickly when the path resembled something he had practiced. He had a private tutor, a retired professor who set him challenge packets, and a father who knew exactly how exam committees thought. But Theo was careless with tools because tools had always appeared for him. He borrowed chargers, lost rulers, forgot batteries, damaged calculator screens, then laughed because someone always had a spare. Boys like Theo grow up thinking the world is full of spares because girls like me are trained to become them. The Whitmore Scholarship was not a trophy. It was oxygen. Full final year tuition, entry into the St. Anselm's Advanced Quantitative Program, a university actuarial summer placement, mentoring from a statistics professor, and an alumni stipend for textbooks, transport, and competition fees. My mother read the brochure at the kitchen table with her hospital headset still around her neck, lips moving silently over the amount. Full tuition, she said. Full, I repeated. My father stared at the kettle like it had personally insulted him. You can win it? Maybe. Mina, coloring on the back of an old bill, looked up and asked, Does Bluebird get a medal too? I said yes because at that point the calculator had earned one. For 6 months, I studied every morning before school, every lunch in the library, every night under the yellow lamp at our table, while my mother answered emergency calls in the next room and my father pretended his pain was not worse in cold weather. I practiced not just maths, but motion, where my fingers went, which menus mattered, how to check outputs against estimates, how to recognize when a result was nonsense wearing decimals. My blue calculator became an extension of my thinking. Not because it thought for me, but because I had taught my panic where to go. In my first life, the morning of the Whitmore final began almost beautifully. I arrived early. The rain had just started, soft enough not to ruin my notes. The external supervisor, Ms. Yara Bell, inspected my calculator at the registration table. Approved model, she said, turning it over. Memory cleared. Serial recorded. She pressed random keys, nodded at the tape on the battery cover, and placed the silver sticker across the back. Candidate 33. Desk 18. I remember touching the sticker afterward like a blessing. Legal. Registered.
Mine.
Theo stood near the inspection table, arguing quietly with another supervisor. His calculator screen was blank. Not dim. Blank. The battery compartment looked slightly warped, like it had been forced open with a key. Mr. Rook appeared beside him, calm at first, then less calm when Ms. Bell shook her head. "We cannot approve a device that fails power on testing," she said. "He can replace the batteries," Mr. Rook replied. "The compartment latch is damaged. The device cannot be sealed. He has used this model all year." "Not today." Theo looked at me then, not pleading exactly, assessing. I looked away, because I was still a girl who believed looking away was safer than knowing too much. At 8:38, Mr. Rook came to my desk. He had the broken smile of a man about to make someone else's sacrifice sound like a compliment. "Ilara," he said softly. "A small situation. In my first life, I looked up with the automatic respect scholarship students learn as survival." "Yes, sir?" He glanced toward Theo, who sat 2 rows ahead, desk empty except for pencils and a water bottle. Theo's calculator failed inspection. I did not respond because there was no response that did not reveal too much hope. "He needs a registered calculator." "Mine is registered to me."
"Yes."
"That is why this is delicate." He lowered his voice. "Lend it to him." I actually laughed once, too quietly for anyone else to hear because the sentence was so impossible it sounded like a test. "I can't. The rules say no sharing. The rules exist to prevent unfair advantage. He would get mine. And you are strong enough to manage with a spare." He produced a black calculator from his jacket pocket. I did not know where it came from. It looked older, scratched, unfamiliar, with a dull screen and stiff gray buttons. "This one is approved." "Is it registered?" "It will be handled." That phrase should be printed on every trap in every school. "It will be handled." By whom? For whom? At whose expense? When I hesitated, Mr. Rook softened his face. "Ilara, I know this scholarship matters to you." That was the hook. "Then you know I need my calculator. You need goodwill too." There it was, the knife beneath the velvet. "Your bursary renewal is coming. Your mother's application for the hospital school reception contract is still under review. Mina's name is on the junior maths camp assistants list, yes? These committees look at character, generosity, team spirit, maturity under pressure." He never said, "Give me your calculator or I will hurt your family." Men like him rarely speak with that kind of honesty. He placed the black calculator beside my pencils and rested 2 fingers on my blue one. "Lend it to Theo. You can manage without it. He cannot." I thought of my mother's night shifts, my father's pain medication, Mina asking whether Bluebird would get a medal. I thought of Theo sitting with no calculator and the whole hall watching if I refused. I thought generosity was supposed to be good. So I let go. The exam in the first life became a slow mechanical failure. Paper 1 was manageable. I used the black calculator only for simple arithmetic, though the equals key stuck twice. Paper 2 destroyed me. The unfamiliar menu layout turned every statistics question into a locked cupboard. I lost 3 minutes finding standard deviation output, then entered a data list incorrectly because the navigation key jumped. In the financial modeling problem, I misread the annuity output because the display rounded differently from Bluebird. In the iterative sequence question, the black calculator's previous answer function behaved differently, and I wasted time rewriting values manually. None of these errors were dramatic alone. Together, they bled the score. I still answered well enough to stay competitive, but not cleanly. Then the audit came. Because my desk had been registered with the blue calculator serial, and I had used the black spare, the external board flagged my script. Mr. Rook claimed he had authorized an emergency substitution but failed to file the incident report under time pressure. The board did not invalidate Theo because his desk showed a registered calculator had been used. The fact that it was mine became blurred in paperwork. My score was reduced for procedural irregularity. Theo won by 2 marks. At the awards assembly, Mr. Rook's face shone with fatherly pride while Theo lifted the Whitmore medal. My blue calculator was returned to me in a plastic evidence bag 3 days later, sticker torn, battery cover loose, 1 key chipped. I held it and felt as if someone had handed me back a bird with a broken wing. The first life after that did not collapse at once. It narrowed. My bursary renewal was insufficiently competitive. My mother did not get the reception contract. Mina did not get junior maths camp assistance. My father sold his tool chest piece by piece. I finished school elsewhere, still good at maths, but good in a smaller room. Theo went on to actuarial science, scholarship profiles, conference panels, and eventually a fintech startup that wrote public essays about democratizing financial tools. I became a tutor, then an exam prep instructor, then the person students came to when they were terrified of calculator active sections. I taught them how to estimate before pressing buttons, how to check reasonableness, how to survive unfamiliar models if theirs failed. Parents loved me because I could calm panic. They did not know I was teaching from the place where mine had been harvested. My death, like most deaths, was both random and insultingly relevant. I had just finished teaching an evening numeracy class at Westbridge Community College. The students were adults preparing for nursing entrance exams, construction certifications, teaching assistant tests, anything that promised a better hourly rate. One woman stayed after to ask whether she should buy a second-hand calculator or keep borrowing her cousin's. Buy one if you can, I told her. Learn your own tool. Outside, rain turned the streetlights into long yellow smears. I stepped into the crossing with my bag over one shoulder, my cheap teaching calculator inside. Not Bluebird. Bluebird had died years earlier after the battery terminals corroded. The bus came too fast around the corner. I heard someone shout. I saw the driver's mouth open. Impact turned the world sideways. My bag hit the road, unzipped, and the calculator slid across the wet asphalt, screen flashing once before going dark. As I lay there, rain in my eyes, I thought not of Theo, not of Mr. Rook, not even of the scholarship. I thought of my hand opening over a blue calculator because a man told me his son needed it more. Keep it, I thought. Then the South Hall returned. This time, at 8:38, when Mr. Rook began walking toward me, I had already lifted the blue calculator and placed it flat beneath my right palm. Not hidden. Protected. The silver sticker faced upward enough for anyone near me to see the candidate number. I had done 3 things in the minutes after Rebirth. First, I photographed the calculator front and back with the sticker visible beside my desk card. Second, I asked Ms. Bell, the external supervisor, to confirm aloud that my device was registered to candidate 33 and could not be swapped without an incident report. She did, slightly puzzled but professional. Third, I wrote the serial number on the top of my scratch sheet in tiny letters, BX70491C. Not because it was necessary, but because writing it made my hand stop shaking. Records decide what survives. I had learned that in another life, too late. Mr. Rook reached my desk with the same soft urgency. "Ilara," he said. "A small situation." I looked up. Yes. Theo's calculator has failed inspection. I saw. His eyelid flickered. In the first life, I had pretended not to. This time, I made the fact public between us. He needs a registered calculator. Then he needs an approved emergency device from the external table. There are none compatible with the paper. That's unfortunate. The words sounded colder than I intended. Good. Some truths should not be warmed for thieves. Mr. Rook's smile tightened. Lend him yours. There it was. Clean. No, the word left my mouth before fear could dress an apology. He blinked once. Not because he had never heard no from a student, but because he had never expected it from me. At that desk, with my family's file inside his reach. "Ilara," he said, lowering his voice. "Do not be difficult. The calculator is registered to my candidate number. I can authorize the loan." Ms. Bell said any swap requires an incident report and external approval before the exam begins. Ms. Bell does not understand local context. The rules are not local. His face changed at that. Just slightly. A corner of the mask lifting. You need to think carefully. I am. Theo is under significant pressure. So am I. You can manage with a spare. Then he can manage with one. His eyes sharpened. Your bursary review is still pending. My heart lurched. Even in a second life, old threats know where to knock. My calculator registration is not. He leaned closer, voice soft enough to be private if I allowed it. Your mother has an application with the school-hospital partnership. Mina's maths camp assistance is not final. Families here notice character. I slid my left hand under the desk and pulled out the yellow calculator irregularity slip clipped beside the candidate rules. I had not noticed it in the first life because I was too busy surrendering. Now I unfolded it and placed it beside the calculator. Mr. Rook's face lost a little color. "What are you doing?" "Recording that you asked me to lend a registered device." "That is unnecessary. Then you will not mind it being accurate." I raised my hand. In an exam hall, a raised hand before the paper begins is not dramatic, but it is visible. Ms. Bell looked over from the front table. "Candidate 33? I need to report a calculator irregularity." Mr. Rook's jaw tightened. Theo, 2 rows ahead, turned slightly. Students nearby pretended not to listen with the intense attention of people listening very hard. Ms. Bell approached, clipboard in hand. "What is the issue?" "Mr. Rook asked me to lend my registered calculator to candidate Rook because his failed inspection." Mr. Rook laughed softly, disappointed teacher laugh, the kind meant to make the student sound overwrought. "I was exploring emergency options. He told me to lend it," I said. "He also referenced my bursary review, my mother's contract application, and my sister's camp assistance." Ms. Bell's expression changed. "Not much." "Enough." "Mr. Rook," she said, "please step away from candidate 33's desk." He did not move immediately. That was his mistake. The hall saw the pause. Ms. Bell repeated, louder, "Please step away." He stepped back. I wrote the report in the smallest, clearest handwriting I could manage. At 8:39 a.m., Mr. Alastair Rook instructed me to lend my registered blue calculator to candidate Theo Rook after Theo's device failed inspection. He referenced my bursary review, my mother's contract application, and my sister's camp assistance. I refused. I signed. Ms. Bell signed as witness to the report's filing and placed a red hold sticker on the corner. "Your calculator remains with you," she said. "Do not surrender it to anyone except external supervision after the exam." Then she turned to Mr. Rook. "You will have no further contact with candidate devices." His face did not fall yet. Men like Mr. Rook do not collapse at the first barrier. They recalculate. But something in his expression shifted when he looked from my hand to the red hold sticker. He had expected a girl. He found a paper trail. Theo took the exam without an approved calculator for paper 2. That sounds impossible until you understand policy. He had the option to use a basic 4-function device provided by the external supervisor, which could handle arithmetic, but none of the statistical functions the Whitmore final expected. He accepted it because the alternative was withdrawal. I did not look back when Ms. Bell placed it on his desk. I heard the tiny plastic click. I imagined his face. Then I stopped imagining because his disaster was not my work. Mine was in front of me. Paper 1 began at 9 o'clock. Algebra, sequences, proportional reasoning, interpreting graphs without heavy calculation. Bluebird moved under my fingers like a familiar door opening. I still estimated before pressing equals. I still wrote units. I still checked whether answers made sense. The calculator did not make me safe. It made me efficient enough to use what I knew. Paper 2 began after break, and that was where the hall separated into those who knew their tools and those who had assumed tools would appear. The first section involved comparing 2 investment plans with variable quarterly contributions and fees. I used the table mode, checked a recurrence manually, then wrote a conclusion about sensitivity to fee changes. The second section involved fitting an exponential model to population data and explaining why a linear model overestimated long-term growth. Bluebird statistics menu flashed through my fingers. The third section was the trap, a transformed dataset where the correlation improved after logarithmic scaling, but only if you excluded an outlier justified by a documented measurement fault. Students who blindly pressed regression keys would choose the wrong model. Students without statistical functions would drown in arithmetic. I glanced once toward Theo. He was staring at the basic calculator as if it had personally betrayed his bloodline. Mr. Rook stood at the back of the hall now, barred from device supervision, arms folded, expression controlled. Every time Theo's pencil stopped, Mr. Rook's jaw moved. He could not approach. He could not whisper. He could not produce a spare. He could not turn my calculator into his son's lifeboat because the red hold sticker, the incident report, and Miss Bell's eyes had made the room too bright. There are few things more powerful than forcing manipulation to operate in daylight. Most of it cannot breathe. The final problem asked candidates to evaluate two scholarship funding models using amortization, projected inflation, and uncertainty intervals. It was exactly the kind of question Theo usually polished into brilliance after private coaching, and exactly the kind of question that punished anyone who could not test values quickly. I worked through it steadily. Bluebird's buttons clicked softly, a rhythm I trusted. Menu, statistics, table, recurrence, clear, estimate, check. At one point, the display dimmed for half a second because the hall lights shifted under the rain clouds, and my heart nearly stopped. Then the solar strip caught light again. I almost laughed. Not now, Bluebird. Not after all this. The calculator behaved.
So did I.
When the bell rang, I put my pencil down and kept my right hand beside the calculator. Ms. Bell collected devices before scripts this time because of the irregularity report. She came to my desk first. Candidate 33. Registered blue calculator. She read the serial aloud. BX70491C. Sticker intact. She placed it into a clear evidence pouch, sealed it, and wrote my candidate number across the flap. I watched every movement. In the first life, my calculator disappeared into Mr. Rook's handled process and returned broken. In this life, it entered a bag with my name on it. The script followed. Sealed.
Matched.
Preserved. Boring. Beautiful. The corridor after the exam hummed with rumors. Theo had used a baby calculator. Theo had left 2 questions blank. Ilara filed a report. Mr. Rook got told to step back. Candidate 33 had a red sticker. Someone called my calculator the Blue Witness, and by lunch the phrase had spread far enough that 2-year 10s whispered it as I passed. I found my mother under the stone arch outside, umbrella dripping, hospital uniform under her coat. She looked at my face and said, "Who tried to take what?" I loved her for that. Not, "How was the exam?" Not, "Did you win?" Who tried to take what? Mr. Rook told me to lend Bluebird to Theo. Her eyes went flat. And I kept it. And I reported him. She closed her eyes for 1 second, then opened them with tears standing bright but unshed. Good girl. Then she frowned.
No.
Not good girl. Good record. That made me laugh. She hugged me anyway. That night, our kitchen table became a documentation center. My mother printed the bursary emails. My father, moving slowly because his back was bad, found every letter about the hospital school reception contract. Mina contributed by drawing Bluebird with a cape and labeling it Registered Hero, which was not legally useful, but emotionally excellent. I wrote a statement while the exam was fresh, including the time, the words "lend it," the references to my family's applications, Ms. Bell's instruction that Mr. Rook step away, the red hold sticker, and the sealed evidence pouch. My mother read it, removed 3 adjectives, added 2 dates, and said, "Never give them emotion where a timestamp will do." She should have been a lawyer. Instead, she answered hospital calls from people angry about waiting rooms. Maybe that is the same training. Ms. Bell replied before midnight. Candidate statement received. Calculator device BX70491C and script packet for candidate 33 preserved under external hold. Candidate Rook's failed device inspection record attached to review. Mr. Alistair Rook removed from device oversight pending investigation. I read the message 3 times. Device preserved. Script preserved. Failed inspection record attached. In my first life, the truth had been scattered across people's hands. In this one, it had labels. St. Anselm's tried to call it a misunderstanding. Of course. The first email to families described a pre-examination device concern involving emergency calculator access. Emergency calculator access. Not attempted coercion. Not conflict of interest. Not a director asking a bursary girl to hand over a register device to his son. Schools are very good at writing sentences that walk around the body on the floor. But students had seen Ms. Bell order Mr. Rook away. Theo had used the basic calculator in full view. My report existed. The failed inspection record existed. And, most damagingly, The device log showed there had been 2 approved spare scientific calculators at the external table, but neither had advanced statistical functions. Mr. Rook had not wanted any calculator for Theo. He had wanted mine. The results were delayed for external moderation. During those 12 days, Mr. Rook stopped teaching classes and became unavailable for enrichment duties. Theo came to school but looked as if every hallway had become a scoreboard. Some students mocked him, which I did not like. Others defended him too loudly, which I liked even less. Boys like Theo are protected so thoroughly that when the protection fails, people mistake the crash for accountability. The real question was not whether Theo suffered embarrassment. The real question was how many systems had been built to prevent him from ever meeting a locked door without someone else's key. He did not speak to me. I did not seek him out. We were 2 candidates waiting for results, except one of us had tried to keep her tool, and the other had waited for his father to get him one. The review interview happened in a glass conference room overlooking the courtyard. Present were Ms. Bell, the external assessment officer Dr. Imogen Reeve, Principal Halden, the school legal advisor, my mother, and me. Mr. Rook was not present, which told me the adults had at least learned not to put the fox beside the sign chicken. Dr. Reeve asked me to recount the event from calculator registration onward. I did. She asked if I had felt free to refuse. No, I said. Why? Because Mr. Rook referenced my bursary, my mother's contract application, and my sister's camp assistance. He controls or influences those processes. Principal Halden shifted. Mr. Rook does not directly control all of those. My mother turned her head slowly. Influence is enough when a child is sitting an exam. The room went quiet. Dr. Reeve wrote something down. I loved my mother so much in that moment it hurt. They showed me the device logs. My calculator. Approved 814, serial recorded, sticker placed, red hold at 841, sealed after exam. Theo's calculator. Failed power on test 821, damaged battery latch, not sealable, rejected. Emergency basic calculator. Issued 846, serial recorded. Limited function. Mr. Rook's statement claimed he had merely asked whether I would voluntarily assist another candidate in a spirit of community before realizing the rule implications. My statement, Ms. Bell's witness note, and 2 nearby students' accounts contradicted the softness. One student heard, bursary. Another heard, your family. Ms. Bell heard, lend. The calculator did what objects do when humans try to rewrite events. It remained itself.
Blue. Stickered. Registered. Meaning.
The award assembly was held in the senior hall the following Friday. It should have been grand, but the delay had changed the flavor of the room. Students sat straighter. Teachers whispered less. Mr. Rook was absent from the stage. Theo sat in the second row, pale, hands clasped, no calculator in sight. My mother sat beside me in her work cardigan. My father came to spite his back. Mina wore a blue ribbon in her hair and carried her drawing of superhero Bluebird folded in her pocket. Principal Halden opened with a speech about integrity, so strained it nearly snapped. Then Dr. Reeve took the podium. The Whitmore Scholarship Final has been externally verified following a calculator device irregularity report filed before the examination began, she said. Before. That mattered. All candidate scripts and devices were preserved. Scores have been confirmed under proper device allocation. Proper device allocation. Another phrase too boring for anyone who had not been robbed by a calculator. This year's Whitmore Scholar is Candidate 33, Alara Venn. My mother made a sound that was half prayer, half laugh. Mina shouted, Bluebird won, and my father put his hand over his face. I walked to the stage on legs that felt borrowed. Dr. Reeve handed me the certificate and then, unexpectedly, a clear evidence pouch. Inside was my calculator, stickers still intact. Returned after verification, she said softly. It performed well. I laughed because that was the only possible response. The hall clapped. I looked toward Theo. He did not clap at first. Then he did, slowly, eyes fixed on the floor. Mr. Rook was not there to watch me receive the medal. But he arrived at the back doors just as Dr. Reeve announced that Mr. Alistair Rook had been removed from all scholarship administration pending disciplinary findings. He must have thought he could slip in unnoticed. Instead, the hall turned at the sound of the door. His face, composed for a lifetime of rooms bending around him, fell. Not dramatically, not theatrical. It simply dropped, all the confidence leaving at once as he saw me on stage holding the blue calculator in its sealed pouch, his son seated without the prize, and the entire school looking at him not as a mentor, not as a director, but as the man who had tried to move a registered device from the girl who earned it. His mouth opened slightly. Nothing came out. For once, no smooth sentence arrived in time. The disciplinary findings came later, but the assembly had already marked him. The report found conflict of interest breaches, attempted improper device transfer, coercive reference to a candidate's financial and family circumstances, failure to follow emergency calculator protocol, and misuse of administrative influence. The school could not prove he had successfully interfered with prior competitions, but the review reopened 2 device substitution incidents from earlier years where scholarship students had accepted emergency spares and then underperformed. No conclusion, officially. Plenty of smoke. Mr. Rook resigned before the end of term to pursue independent educational consultancy. People with reputational damage always seem to discover consultancy at the same time. Theo's score was verified as his own. He had not cheated in the exam. He had failed the calculator-heavy sections badly enough to place 11th. 11th at St. Anselm's was a tragedy only if you had been raised to think first was your surname. The policies changed fast. Registered calculators were photographed with candidates before entry. Staff with relatives in the exam were barred from all materials supervision. Emergency devices had to be issued only by external supervisors, with function limitations recorded before the paper began. No student could be asked to lend, share, exchange, or surrender a registered device except through written external authority. Financial aid files and family applications were locked during assessment windows. Boring reforms. Beautiful reforms. Every future blue calculator would have more armor than mine did. Mina read the new policy and said, "So Bluebird made laws." "Rules," I corrected.
Same bird, she said.
Theo found me in the library 3 weeks later. I was at the back table working through university placement forms, Bluebird beside me. Evidence sticker finally removed, but the sticky outline still visible. He stood across from me holding his rejected calculator in one hand. "Repaired now, screen alive." "I didn't know he was going to pressure you," he said.
No hello.
No performance. Just a sentence he had probably practiced. I kept my pencil on the page. "Did you know he was going to get you a calculator?" Theo looked down. "Yes." "Did you ask where from?" "No, why?" His face tightened. "Because I didn't want to know."
Honest. Ugly.
Useful. I thought he'd find an approved spare. Or make an exception. Or take mine. He swallowed. Maybe. The words sat between us. Better than denial. Worse than innocence. "I was angry when you reported it," he said. "I thought you were humiliating me. You were willing to let me sit paper 2 without my own device." "I know. Do you?" He nodded once. "I used the basic calculator. I couldn't do half the paper. I kept thinking, this is impossible. Then I realized that was what I expected you to manage." That sentence did more than an apology. It showed he had stood inside the room he once offered me. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not enough, but I am." I looked at Bluebird. "Learn your own tools," I said. "And stop letting your father call other people's things emergency supplies." Theo almost smiled, then thought better of it. Fair. We did not become friends. But the next year, when he sat a different competition, he arrived with 2 approved calculators, both registered, both his. Growth is sometimes just a boy carrying his own batteries. The Whitmore Scholarship changed the practical shape of my life. Tuition cleared. My mother withdrew her application for the school hospital contract and found a better position at the actual hospital, where at least nobody could use it as leverage over her child's exam. My father bought a better chair for his back and began repairing small electronics at home, including calculators for half the neighborhood. Mina went to maths camp with assistance from a different charity because my mother said she would rather wrestle a crocodile than accept help from St. Anselm's enrichment office that year. I entered the advanced quantitative program and discovered actuarial modeling, not as a glossy career brochure, but as a way of asking how institutions price risk for people they never meet. That fascinated me. It also angered me. Useful combination. Years later, I became a forensic data analyst specializing in assessment fraud, financial modeling errors, and institutional risk audits. That sounds too neat, but lives often organize themselves around the object that almost disappeared. I examined chains of custody, device logs, spreadsheet histories, calculator policies, exam metadata, and the quiet places where someone with access could make a number belong to the wrong person. I kept Bluebird on my office shelf long after it stopped turning on. The crack in the solar strip widened. The blue plastic faded. The sticker outline remained. Clients sometimes asked about it. I said, "That calculator taught me evidence needs a serial number." They laughed, thinking it was a metaphor. It was not. I saw Mr. Rook once, years later, at a conference on educational leadership. He had reinvented himself as a consultant on high-performance resilience because people like him always find a way to turn consequences into branding. He approached after my panel on assessment integrity and device chain protocols. Older, still tall, still charcoal-suited, still carrying that reasonable man's smile like a polished shield. "Laraven," he said. "Your work has become very specialized." Yes. All from a calculator incident. All from a man who thought my registered device was community property. His smile thinned. I was trying to support a distressed student. Your son. A student nonetheless. By distressing another one. His eyes hardened. You always had a talent for making things adversarial.
No, I said.
I had a calculator with a serial number. For a moment, the conference noise faded, and I saw his face fall again as it had at the back of the hall. He recovered faster this time. Men like him practice recovery. Theo suffered greatly after that year, he said. Theo learned to bring his own tools. You are unforgiving. I am properly registered. He did not laugh. I did. My mother eventually opened a tiny stationery and exam supply shop near the station. Of course, she named it Bluebird. Our family had never met a trauma it could not turn into practical branding. The shop sold calculators, batteries, transparent pencil cases, rulers, sticky labels, spare pens, and laminated checklists titled "Before you enter the exam room." My father ran a small repair counter beside the register, testing keys, replacing battery covers, cleaning contacts, and telling students, never borrow, panic. Mina, older and impossible, designed a Bluebird logo holding a calculator in its claws. On the wall behind the counter, my mother hung a sign, "If it is registered to you, IT stays with you." Students came in nervous before exams and left with batteries, receipts, and my mother's unsolicited life advice. Do not lend your future because someone else came unprepared, she told them. Sharing is for snacks, not registered devices. Now, when I teach students how to prepare for calculator active exams, I begin with the object. Not the formulas. Not the topics. The object. Know your model. Clear yourself before inspection. Check your batteries. Learn the menus until your fingers do not ask permission. Photograph your proof sticker if rules allow. Record your serial number. Bring a backup only if the policy permits and register it properly. Never take a device from a teacher without paperwork. Never give yours to another candidate. And if someone important tells you to lend it because you are strong enough, ask why strength always seems to mean losing what you prepared. A calculator will not make you brilliant, but being forced to surrender the tool you trained with can make your brilliance arrive late, rushed, and easier to dismiss. That is not generosity. That is sabotage wearing school manners. The simple version is true. I was reborn. I kept my blue calculator. He told me to lend it. His face fell. But the simple version cannot hold the weight of $79.95 paid in installments, Mina naming a calculator Bluebird, my mother removing adjectives from an incident statement, Ms. Bell reading the serial number aloud, Theo staring at a basic calculator as if buttons had betrayed him, or Mr. Rook arriving at the hall doors just in time to see the evidence pouch in my hand. It cannot hold the first life girl who believed being generous would protect her family, or the second life girl who learned that generosity demanded under threat is just theft with softer lighting. It cannot hold the boring beauty of model approval, serial logs, red hold stickers, sealed device pouches, and a blue plastic machine remaining exactly where the rules said it belonged. If you ever sit at a desk with something you repaired, learned, practiced, and registered in your own name, and someone with power tells you another student needs it more, do not argue about who deserves sympathy. Sympathy is how they move your hand. Ask for the policy. Ask for the incident slip. Ask the external supervisor to witness the request. Keep the tool on your desk until the room has to admit it is yours. Because the world will always produce boys who arrive unready and men who call your preparation a spare. Let them. Let the room watch. Let the serial number speak. Keep your blue calculator. Press the keys yourself. And when his face falls, do not call it revenge. Call it correct allocation.